Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms, and of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Happy New Year, Ryan. Happy New Year, Kaylee. Thanks so much.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Glad we finally got to do this.
I've been wanting to do this for years because I've loved your music for so long. So it's an honor to meet you, and it's an honor to chat with you about music and life and other things. So really appreciate your time. And Ryan, you're Ryan Williams and Kaylee Bowling of the Native Sibling. Ryan, you're calling in from Nashville. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And Kaylee, you're out west in Seattle.
I am now in Chimacum, Washington.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's been the country on the Atlantic Peninsula. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I bet it doesn't rain there.
Not nearly as much as Seattle, actually. Part of the reason why.
Oh yeah, that's smart. All right, so it is the new year. I don't know when this is going to be actually published to the public, but it's the second week of January, I guess. What do you all have New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I do actually. This year isn't. Yeah, it's gonna be a build. I'm calling this my build year. So I'm maybe trying to have another child with my wife. So that's building the family. I'm gonna get a knee surgery. None of this relates to music so much, but yeah. And then the third goal is I want to write a ton more this year. I feel like last year I was just playing a lot of music and being a part of a lot of other people's projects, which is always fun. I love it, and I won't stop that. But I want to get the pen and paper out again and do some more writing. So that's my goals. Yeah.
Okay, those are good. Kaylee, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'm with Ryan with the wanting to build a family part, so exciting. And I think musically, so I'm also in grad school. So I'm working on that, which intertwines with music for me. I'm studying theological studies. So that really informed a lot of my writing. So I'm excited to hopefully wrap up studying and similar to Ryan, just have that inform writing and getting back into doing some more music.
So theological studies, that's awesome. And I think you released a single last year called the Place Where I Can Rest, right? And that was a song I think that was about exploring your faith and things like that.
Yeah.
I guess how much did the graduate school play in that, or is that something that you've been thinking about for a while?
I think the studies have made it maybe more explicit. I think my faith has been important. It informed my songwriting for a long time. But yeah, I think that, that song in particular feels like a little bit of a departure.
Is the Place Where I Can Rest, is that about heaven, or is it something else?
More or less, yeah. I think of heaven and my understanding of the Holy Spirit with me now.
So 2024 was also a year where you guys re-released an album that you released 10 years ago with some changes, right? And I think it's called Letters Kept to Ourselves.
Correct. Yeah, that's where it all kind of started for us.
Yeah, that's a big album because I think it got a lot of accolades from critics and listeners and everything. I guess what prompted the sort of the revisitation to that album, and can you talk through some of the changes and additions that you guys decided to include?
Yeah, we so the main reason was because it was like the 10-year anniversary of the record. So that was kind of the main reason we wanted to pull it back and kind of revisit the songs, just since we haven't been playing a whole lot together recently. It was kind of a fun thing to work on together. I don't know, see where the sparks go, and like maybe there's some new music in the works, that kind of thing too. And there was some other tracks that we wanted to include on that album that we never really got to include the first go around, just because we recorded that album in Brooklyn New York, and we just kind of did it all in like a chunk. It wasn't like a home studio or something where we could just pop back in and do another song. So we had this song, The Fall, that we wanted to include on that album. We wrote it right around the same time and recorded it at the same place with the same guitars, same producer, so it really fit with that catalog of music, but for whatever reason, it just didn't get released at the same time.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah, some of
go for it, Kaylee.
it was one of the songs I think we finished writing kind of right after the record.
Mhm.
So it was in a similar time frame, but just didn't quite fit that session.
It's a great song because I think
Mhm.
Ryan, hopefully you won't take this the wrong way, but Kaylee's voice typically is sort of the prominent,
Mhm.
fixture. It's because it's
What are you
it's
talking
incredible.
about?
It's incredible. It's incredible. What
Yeah.
I love about that song though is, what I love about that song is like your voice is like crystal clear and just nice, and it's very it's very it's very welcoming, right? And but then all of a sudden, like halfway through, it's like boom, there's Kaylee again. It's just like, okay, there she is. Yeah, I think it's one of the best examples of not you all kind of singing together, but sort of you individually and then like coming together. So it's a great addition to that album.
I will absolutely second what you're saying. Like, I think when we went into making that first record, I was pretty unsure about my own voice I don't know how much I've talked about that publicly, but Kaylee definitely had like a very natural gift, and it's something I've worked on quite a bit. And I was not really sure, especially about the falsetto voice, like my really high range there. And there was one song on the first album called Let the Water Rise where I started to kind of experiment with that, but I wasn't really singing lyrics. It was more of just like atmospheric sounds. And so I think like getting more comfortable by making that first record, I just felt like, okay, maybe I can go sing like a verse and a chorus like fully in my falsetto range. And so that probably had something to do with why that song came out, after the record too, because I wasn't really singing that in that range before the first album, like in the writing for the first record. So yeah, that was definitely an evolutionary period for me, just as a singer, just getting comfortable with like what I can do and where I can go with that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I love changing your voice. I also like the comment you made about kind of like the singing together, but also moments where we kind of pass the baton. So I think that dynamic is something that has also evolved over time. Uh, one person kind of taking the lead. But that song is very much like a pass of the baton, and how that can kind of play into the form and feel of each song and help it evolve in different ways. It's one of the most fun things about that.
And then you guys included some live tracks. I assume they were recorded in, is it Ballard, Washington?
Yeah. So we were living in that neighborhood at the time. And there's this really cool old church there called the Abbey. And it just has like this expansive reverb if you sing in there. And they have a grand piano in there and stuff. So there was a guy that had a session that he would do with like a lot of different Seattle artists. And it was called the Ballard Sessions. And he would take people, a lot of times to like cool sounding locations, whether it was like under a bridge so you get some reverb, or he used the Abbey a lot. A few other spots around Seattle too. But yeah, we did that live session pretty closely to when we released that full album. And yeah, we just felt like those really captured like the moment we were in at that time when those songs came out, and like they were new to us, and we felt like, we were getting a lot of support from that community up there in Seattle, and just like that was really just like a huge gust of wind for us, like just set sail to getting to the next album and everything, the touring and stuff we did. So yeah, we just felt like those really encapsulated just exactly where we were at from like a live perspective. So it felt right to put those on the 10th anniversary because it just fit right in. in our minds with what we were doing at the time.
What does it mean today to you all both, differently maybe than it did when you made it? Is there a different perspective that you have and a different appreciation?
That's a good question. Very good question. I would say like it kind of like when we first kind of came up with that theme, it was like we had written a lot of these songs kind of separately, and they were just like letters we had, to ourselves, like in a very literal sense. And then we collaboratively brought them together, but the majority of the song, at least for a lot of them, was kind of written, or like the lyrical theme was kind of there before we shared it with each other. So it was in a way kind of like showing each other our journal, or our, really what we were going through at the time, but from this separate points of view. And I think now, like looking at that, like the second record was way more collaborative, like in the room writing, like
Mhm.
in the studio, kind of more in the moment. And yeah, it is kind of fascinating to reflect on the difference there. And we're not really hiding the songs from each other anymore until we feel like they're ready, and that kind of approach. So yeah.
Kaylee, what about you?
Yeah, it was interesting kind of listening to those songs when we were getting ready for the re-release. Because I hadn't listened to them in a really long time. And to listen back and, kind of hear how we've evolved since then. And I think we are both had that same sentiment of, wow, I'm so proud of this. And that really is a beautiful thing as an artist to have these little time capsules. And I think there was a really beautiful kind of like vulnerability in the way that a lot of these songs came about. Kind of in that quiet, journal-y way that Ryan was talking about. In some ways, you move through things. A lot of times songs are about things that are difficult. To a degree, I'm like, oh God, I'm past that particular thing, or grieving over something, or whatever the song pertains to. That's interesting to just kind of revisit and be in a different place and still be really proud of it.
So there's Here With Me, right? I've listened to that quite a bit. It feels like it's like a desire for connection, sort of amidst sort of the inevitable impermanence of life, right? It's just like this kind of tension between stickiness and permanence. Which one of you wrote that? Did you write it together? And what are some of the themes that resonate with you from that song?
Yeah, I guess I kind of started that when I was living in Santa Monica, and actually Kaylee and I both lived in Santa Monica together, but it was a little bit before that time. And I started writing that song, and I actually, for like another band I was in at the time, but I didn't know like how to do any of this stuff yet. So I was literally just writing about, writing my lyrics down and stuff. And I kind of workshopped it a bit with my friend Adam, who I still play music with. And it was a super vulnerable song, which I had never, ever thought of doing before. I'd always hide behind this, mysterious or like kind of more poetic kind of cloud, maybe. But yeah, it was really about feeling the loss of our mom had passed away. And we were just both writing about that a lot. And this was kind of my approach to like, that people are always there with you. It's the memory, and there's a certain like somberness to the song, I think, that comes through, which is very genuine. But yeah, it's very much about just kind of missing someone, but also knowing that, you have all the memories and that they're still there with you. It's pretty much a literal kind of love letter there.
Okay. And Kayla, what's it like to sing a song like that that's about your mom, but it's written by your brother? Like, how connected to that when you're singing that?
I think it was really calming to be able to express things, and even the way that both are moved through that process was different. the way we understand it is different. And our relationships that were different. And there's sort of this sweet assurance, of the fact that we get to do it together at the Blinks. It feels like this beautiful kind of legacy and reflection that honors her. So, yeah.
Yeah, one more note on that. It made so much sense to me once Kaylee and I started singing that song, because it is like a song about someone, but someone that was close to just Kaylee and I and our dad. Like, it would only make sense for me to sing that song with literally Kaylee over our dad. Like, no one else would really. It wouldn't make sense to me. Like, it would cheapen the song, I think. So, even though I wrote that song before we had really gotten the wheels turning on this, like, that really catapulted, I think, us singing together and just what we could do, like, relationally, but also kind of just how heavy could we make these songs and still pull them off live and not just be in tears sometimes, or whatever it could be. So yeah, it was a very vulnerable place to kind of start. It was definitely one of the first songs we're singing together.
Yeah.
Good segue to what I was going to ask you about in terms of the sibling dynamic, right? I've talked to a few people. I think the most common sort of relationship dynamic with women and men who are in music is romantic relationship, whether they're committed partners or they're married. There's not too many siblings, right? So I guess, how has that been? And are there any specific challenges do you think that brings to the table that another dynamic wouldn't have to worry about?
I think we've had to learn a lot over time. Just like any close relationship, like, how are we communicating? Because now we're singing and business partners and traveling together. It's adding more layers. And doing that with a sibling is the best. And then there's also kind of that preceding sibling dynamic that you have to work through. And I think we've both have grown a lot from that. Yeah, it's family. It's the best. It's also like sometimes we give the worst to the people we love the most. So it's a lot of learning and asking for forgiveness.
Yeah, I think pretty early on we realized that love songs, like traditional love songs, were just off. We'll sing covers and stuff, and we're like, it's cool, but yeah, we just realized, like, oh, we really have to explore, like, total, so many songs. Like, such a big chunk of songwriting ever has been about love, like, in a romantic way. And it really was a challenge for us, like, in a good way. Like, all right, what else can we talk about? And that's, I think, where we're talking about, faith and just life experience and family and all these other topics, because that thing is just not really a part of it, right? But that is most of what songs are about generally. So, and I think the funny thing is, being siblings, it's like when we've toured with other bands and stuff, I think we just trip them out totally, because we're very similar. Like, we have obviously, like, our own idiosyncrasies, but it is so funny. I think we just trip people out, like, in the green room,
Yeah, I think we just have to make fun of it.
Yeah,
A male version of each other
tripping
in a lot of ways. I think I just need to cut my hair into it.
Yeah, it is really funny. We have fun with it, though. I mean, it is cool that whether we're putting out music or just hanging out for Christmas, like, we're still together, and it's not just a band, and then we spend all this time away from each other, and it's like, our own two worlds. It's really, it overlaps, like, all the time. So that's a really cool part of it. I think that no matter what, we could call it quits tomorrow, and then we'd still be brother and sister forever. So it doesn't really end ever,
Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask you though, like, growing up and maybe even as adults, each of you separately, what's the most annoying thing about your brother Kaylee, or Ryan, for you? There's got to be something that drives you nuts.
Yeah. Kaylee could probably just say everything.
I think that's one of those things over time where I'm like, and also now that we don't live in the same place, there's just so much appreciation. Getting to work with other people and continuing to learn, and then coming back and working with Ryan, it makes the whole perspective just like, I'm so appreciative.
Yeah, it is fun working with other people. I mean, you're getting to know them a lot of times, like in the creative process or during a tour or something like that. But when we work together, it's like we have the same jokes that we made when we were 6 years old, and we can just pull those out of the hat like at any time, like just these funny little things that it's just an inside scoop on that. So
Okay. All
yeah.
right. Well, good. That's a good answer. So the other song I want to ask you about is Darkest of Night Skies. Beautiful song. The bit of that song that it's almost mesmerizing to me is when Kaylee just repeats, have we met in the passing? Maybe she doesn't repeat it, but like I can hear that in her voice, have we met in the passing? It's just a very simple phrase in question, but how it's sung and all that, it's just, I love that so much. So it is like, what's the context behind that song? And it feels like it's about, life is so transient sometimes, and, sort of chance meetings and, things like that. But yeah, tell me about the context of that, if you don't mind.
Do you want to start that bit?
Yeah,
This was the
okay.
song started,
Yeah.
you brought to me, and then that kind of chorus part you're talking about came out later.
Yeah, so you had it dialed, I think, Jason, with the word transient. I got really inspired I got like pretty in-depth reading about the life of the Johnny Appleseed, like the American folklore figure. And his kind of transient nature, just traveling across, wide open country. And yeah, and I tried to like put myself in his shoes to some degree. And a lot of the verse lyrics are kind of about that. And putting myself in, I love, like, we both love camping and being outdoors and like all this kind of stuff. It just started bringing up all this like imagery to me, and I was just writing it down, like, okay, like sitting by the fire and all, literally like the darkest of night skies, and just kind of reflecting on your own person with that. And then I brought that, I like little, pun intended, but I brought the seed to Kaylee, and then Kaylee can kind of explain, if you want to, Kaylee, like where the chorus kind of like rounds out that song.
Well, yeah, I love talking about this song because it started out being called Broken Straw.
Okay, so that's where Johnny Appleseed was born, is in Broken Straw, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Broken Straw was brought to me, and I remember because I was just visiting LA, and Ryan and I were sitting in his living room. This was when we first started writing collaboratively in the same room too. So these songs felt like really exciting when we would have to get onto something. Oh, how about this? And that chorus, yeah, as we were kind of thinking about that campfire scene, and then we kind of came up with that dark of night sky. And it almost gets kind of like cosmic in a way, because, you're like, we're dancing, there's like movement and looking into the sky, that there's this great moment that you're having right now, and it's fleeting, and then, yeah, having met here in passing. And then the next lyric is by all happenstance, kind of poses a question, and you can answer that however you want.
That's the art. Yeah, that's good. It's a great song. So those two, Here With Me and Darkest of Night Skies, those are the ones that are on repeat. And I think one of them, How I Met You, got all was through how the streaming works, right? You start a radio station or a shuffle, and I forgot what was the source artist, but I think it was Darkest of Night Sky. I was like, oh my gosh, what a What a great song. And yeah, so and I think what I want to do now is just kind of go back even before that album, because it wasn't like you all kind of grew up kind of like at the Osmonds, right? In a musical environment where you're out performing on TV. Almost every interview or everything I've seen about you all is that the moment that you all sort of realized that you might have something here was at a pub in Ireland. I guess can you tell me about that moment, and what was it about that situation that you realized that you could be the native sibling and write songs and sing songs together?
Kaylee was living in Ireland at the time, doing a study abroad program. We went over there for a family trip just to kind of check in, see what she's up to, see her in the yeah. So yeah, Kaylee was doing like these trad sessions, I guess you would call it, like traditional Irish music. Um, and yeah, we just like sang a few songs and hung out like when we went over there, and it was pretty like immediate. I think it was the first time in our lives, especially when we both liked the same kind of music at the same time, because we were like completely polar opposites, like always. I was into metal, Kaylee was into classical, and it was just like all over the map. So when we, yeah, yeah, yeah. So when we hung out there in Ireland, we were there for a few days in Galway, and yeah, just like started sharing songs that we were writing, like some of the songs that made it on the first letter skip to ourselves. So yeah, that was really like what the spark that started all of it. And it was just such a cool time because we were both like in our early 20s and didn't really have like a lot of, um, I guess, responsibility yet or anything. So we could just dive straight into it. And that was, yeah, the Irish pub is the tale is true.
So were you all performing at a pub, or was it just kind of a random sing along with the other patrons? Like, what was that moment like?
The scene. Yeah, a lot of the things I was going to at the time were just weekly sessions where people, gather at place on Tuesday, 7, bring your instrument and a lot of traditional music, but then kind of interspersed in that, sometimes they'd point us on and be like, hey, do one of your songs, or do that song we all love, or whatever it was. And so when Ryan was visiting, we were just at one of those weekly sessions. And I was like, great, let's do a song.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that happened. That's really good. So last year was the re-release of Letters Kept to Ourselves. Kaylee, I think a couple years ago you released a solo album, and then the single that we talked about earlier last year. And then Ryan, you alluded to the fact that you've been kind of working on some other things. I guess what are some of those projects you've been doing? And then in 2025, will you all plan to kind of bring some more new native sibling material to the forefront? Is that the plan this year and beyond?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we're like in. We took a little break, like pandemic. We were working on separate music. Like Kaylee was working on her solo record, and I was working with a couple guys in Seattle on a new project. And I think like me moving to Nashville, that kind of just put like a bit of a halt on the native sibling world. But I think now, like, it's been nice. Like, I think we're re-releasing this first record. It's kind of made us like listen back to the songs and go, wow, yeah, that was really, we should do more of that. Why don't we just do more of that? So yeah, I think it's invigorated it. Yes, it's nice to be reminded sometimes what you have and kind of what we built over the years. So yeah, that was really nice.
Songs that you kind of have that you're wanting to kind of share and do that, or do you still need to write quite a bit?
I'd say writing phase. Yeah.
Yeah, leaning more towards new things and past things.
And then Ryan, I think you said some of the projects, I think you've said before we started talking was, you were helping with like the Old Sea Brigade
Yeah.
a little bit. Was it that and some other things as well, or mainly that?
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben is, who is Old Sea Brigade, my friend Ben, has been super nice and has kind of had me be a part of his band a few different times, for touring. And we've written together as well. So yeah, he's an awesome dude. So I've been touring with him a little bit, just over the years. Like we went to Europe, in 2024, which was awesome. And we did kind of a duo show over there, and he's great. And then I have been playing with on and off with a band called Grisfolk for probably 12 years now or something. And Adam, the singer of that band, is actually the same Adam that I was alluding to earlier that kind of helped me with Here With Me, that song Here With Me. So yeah, we had a band before Grisfolk and it kind of became Grisfolk, and we've been kind of been passing the torch, I guess, keeping that band like really fun and keeping it alive and touring. And we're about to go do some dates starting in about a week with that band. But yeah, it's been really cool. Like I think the Native Sibling, like sonically, has really kind of led me into some other people's projects too, in that kind of alternative folk ambient world. So yeah, guys like Harrison Storm and a few other people, I've been fortunate enough to jump out on the road with them and add my instrumentation to their music, which has been really, really cool. So
That's really good. All right.
yeah.
And then Kaylee, you've been busy getting married, it sounds like. Is
Mhm.
that and then the single, I guess
Yeah.
what are some of the things, and then obviously graduate school, that's a lot. I guess what is your focus in graduate school and what do you want to do with that?
Yeah. Well, a part of what I'm studying, so it's a biblical theological studies program. And so much of what I wanted to do with this study is to apply it back into music. I think that's taken a couple different phases. I think my solo project has been an outlet for a lot of that, just to be able to explore things in a singular voice, and again, sort of that challenge of, okay, there's no band name. This is just me. Everyone knows that I wrote that. But also playing at church. So a lot of what I'm learning informs writing and informs what I'm making. So it's so dovetailed. And I think it's been leaning a little harder into the study aspect. But I find that it's really helpful to kind of have different periods of time that are sort of more the input and more of the output. So I'd say like that solo record was a big output. And then I've been in this like couple of years of input time. And then the single is kind of the start of some output of songs I've been working on the last couple of years. So I've got a handful of songs kind of in that vein.
I do want to ask you all, again, a lot of the artists, for whatever reason, they've shared a journey with their faith, that everyone's different, right? But there's a theme where, kind of like myself, I grew up in basically the buckle of the Bible Belt in the Midwest in Missouri, and grew up going to church. I have a lot of great memories of that. Was really into Christian music, at one point in my life, and I love hymns still. There's a certain peace and just comfort that certain songs still bring me. But the themes
Mhm.
that are consistent with a lot of people that are, I'd say, early 30s to 50 or so, is that they grew up with the thought of a faith and a religion. And as they've gotten older, as they've traveled outside of, like for me, outside of the Midwest, or they've traveled the world, there's a different perspective on sort of this idea of like things are black and white and right and wrong. And there's, I think, more of a recognition of the nuance of life, and the fact that we may not know as much as we thought we would, as we thought we were when we were younger, right? And so I think, anyway, that's a theme that I've heard time and time again, and it's crazy because people love to talk about it because it's almost like, these shared experiences. It's helpful to kind of, feel like you're not alone, right? So I guess it's a long way of asking,
Mhm.
do you all relate to that? And what's interesting, Kaylee, is like, you're in graduate school, doing biblical studies, right? Which is really interesting to me, I guess. Do you mind talking about that and your individual sort of faith journeys at this point in your life?
Yeah, no, I think there's so many people kind of resonating with what you've said, and so much of the art that I really have loved in the last 10, 15 years is people grappling with experiences and how does that line up with, making sense. So I think when it comes to, experiences growing up in church, you can have such a varied experience in the same place. We have really different experiences in our church growing up. I think I'm just landed in this place where I have not found anything else that makes more sense. I am most compelled to still be in the Bible and be a part of the church. It's totally a group of people and a mess sometimes. And I just believe that there's, a God that is bigger than that and still doing the beautiful work.
Yeah, I mean, we, like Kaylee said, we grew up going to the same church, and I was heavily involved, like, in the music program there. And that's what really honestly got me started playing and playing in front of people. And I got to make a lot of mistakes there, and people were nice to me when I was like, in fifth grade trying to play bass or something. So that was a really big part of kind of what got me into playing music. And even the first bands I had and stuff in high school were primarily stacked with guys that I met at church and stuff. We'd even practice at church sometimes. But yeah, it's something that I've kind of gone back and forth with a lot. I've kind of struggled to like just stay in it for the sake of that. I've gone back and forth. Like when I lived in LA, I started playing at a church again. And then in Seattle, I kind of took a break. And then now that I'm here in Nashville, I haven't really found the right spot, I don't think. And it's not like I'm necessarily looking for something just to fill a void. Like, kind of looking for something that would be maybe more an organic feeling, like, the right thing or whatever. But yeah, it's been a huge part of my songwriting, the way I look at the world, the way I talk. Like my vocabulary is very rooted in that kind of system. And yeah, I mean, it's been a huge part, especially in the formative years. Like let's say age 10 to 18 or something like that was really big. Like I was playing multiple services a week and at the summer camp and, literally there almost every day playing music.
I really appreciate you all sharing. And again, we're all on, like Kaylee, you said, it's a journey for everybody. And I still ebb and flow around the intensity of, because when I was, 10 to 18, it was really intense, and it was not a bad intense. It was a lot. And then, kind of took a step back. But what's funny is I never thought about it, but I think the music of the Native Sibling, especially that first album, you could sense that you all had that upbringing, and you sort of you just talked about that. So thank you for that.
Totally. I think one last little comment on this, that within this project, a lot of those spiritual questions we're kind of bringing to the surface in this project. We're leaving them as questions. And that has kind of been somewhat intentional.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. All right. So real quick, where do you think you all are as artists today, right? Whether that's songwriters, with the instruments, whatever, and where do you all want to be?
As a songwriter, it's something I worked on a ton here, like living in Nashville. That was part of the reason like moving here is just to collaborate with a lot of people. So it's been awesome, honestly, like writing with for a bunch of other people's projects here, which has been really fun. And yeah, as a musician, I mean, I still practice. Such a nerd, but I still practice like a lot, and I'm building a studio here. I've been building it for the last few years behind the house. So I've been having more artists like to my space now, and it's so much of what I learned, at least early on through this project, and applying that to other people's music now, and helping them get their emotions and their thoughts out like as purely as possible. I think Daniel, the guy that did both of our albums, actually was really quite the guru in like helping us just express ourselves. And I'll never forget him saying this, but he would always say, he would say, if I've done my job right here as a producer, no one will know I was here. Like there's not going to be, especially for this genre, it's not going to be some big sound that comes in the end, or like it just sounds like you guys in a room, no tricks, So, yeah, I really took that to heart, and I learned a lot about producing music and writing songs through our process here, and now I've been able, like I said, to apply that kind of mindset to other folks' music too, so my goal is to just keep doing it. It's pretty much my full-time deal right now. So just build it. It's a weird career path. It's so bizarre, but it's nice being in Nashville where there's a lot of people doing it.
Kaylee, what about you? Where do you think you are as an artist, and where do you want to be?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how I think I would answer the question different, probably, but 6 months. I don't know. I think it's something that evolves because I think for me, I've always tried to like smaller, achievable goals. And then, yeah, this kind of feels like a more of a large question.
Well, a related question, just here in closing, is this podcast is inspired by a lot of things, but really Ted Lasso, right? I don't know if you all watch that, but sort of the mindset of very positive individual, like this soccer coach, and how he led the team and how he interacted with people, and the fact of the goldfish bit is have a 10-second memory, because you can forget mistakes and move beyond those, and then the whole importance of curiosity, in life, whether that's a sibling relationship, a romantic relationship, a business relationship, or whatever. And so I guess where you all are at in your careers and in grad school and, families and starting families and everything, I guess, what are you each most curious about today?
I think my big question is I sometimes feel like I'm so into music, and then other times I feel like I should just do something else. Well, like this is so challenging, and the time in doesn't give, like my wife has a more traditional job, and it's like when she puts in time, she gets something back that's relative to the amount of time spent. I'm like, that's just so, what am I doing? I'm driving myself insane. Because sometimes it works, and other times you spend a year on something, and it's like, oh, all right, yeah, that's never going to get released or something, which is just part of the game. I know that now, so I'm not disappointed by that. But I think my biggest curiosity is like, what am I going to do in 10 years from now? So is this going to be like, is guitar or playing music going to be a primary thing in my life? Is it going to be the only thing I do, or is it going to be just something I talk about with my buddies, like, oh, that was a fun moment in time. And yeah, I think my curiosity kind of lands on that. Like I'm still pushing hard in the art direction, but the older I get, I feel like, man, it would just be cool to like, work on building houses or like have something kind of simple to do, and then like enjoy other things in life. instead of always being in my head and like, mulling over creative choices or, these kind of endless creative choices. So that's my big question mark in my life. It's like, what is this kind of, and what am I going to do about it? Like in maybe a decade's time.
Yeah. That theme of build just came back again, by the way, building houses.
There it is. Yeah. I'm
No.
feeling the indie today.
It's an honor. Your music's incredible. Letters Kept to Ourselves, the re-release is something. The Fall is a great new song, and we look forward to new music, hopefully in 2025, but hopefully, at some point. So anyway, Happy New Year, and really appreciate your all's time.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It was a great conversation.